So back in session 2, we talked about our discipleship strategy. What is our intentional strategy of how we're going to develop individuals? Because we talked about discipleship needs to focus on each individual person, and how we're going to do that to accomplish the mission of Christ. So we spent time in session 2 talking about what is the strategy. And I got excited when Mr. Nora said win, grow, and send, because those are 3 words that sum up what we are planning to do as a church body in terms of our discipleship strategy. So tonight, we're going to talk about how we're going to do that with the implementation of small groups. So let's get started. At Northeast, we're planning to have 2 categories of small groups. One category we're going to be calling life groups. And then a second category we're going to be calling branches. Where do we get that name branches? Based on John 15:5, where Jesus says, I am the vine and you are the branches.
Yes.
And so we want to use that. And we'll talk about both of these categories going forward. So let's get started exploring the life groups. Here at Northeast, we have a large number of ministries that I'm showing here on the screen. This is the list that's in our new member packet. So if a ministry is listed, it's missing from the list. That was by my mistake, and I ask for forgiveness if I missed something. But what we're planning to do is take those ministries that you see highlighted in green. We're going to take those ministries and rebrand them as Northeast Life Groups. All other ministries will remain unchanged. Just those that's highlighted with the green background, we're going to rebrand them and call them life groups. So let's talk about that a little bit more. So on this screen, I've summarized it. And you may be thinking now, on the previous screen, she said 14, so now she's showing 13. What we're going to do is a couple of ministries are going to be merged into one life group. The Impact and Impact Bible Study, which is currently listed as 2 independent ministries, we're going to merge that into one life group called Impact. The Youth and Youth Bible Study Ministries, currently listed today as a youth ministry and then a youth Bible study ministry, we're merging those together as one life group. We're also going to be turning our Wednesday noonday prayer into a life group. Now, you may be wondering why we're doing that. You'll see in just a few minutes. Some of these life groups, we are recommending a name change. The college ministry, the youth ministry. And why are we doing that? Because we want these life groups to have names that will mean something to the people that we're trying to attract, people that we want to come to Northeast and for people in today's culture. So we're very creative. So we can come up with something more than college ministry. In fact, the young adults at one point had suggested that we call this CCC. What do they call it? Campus Connecting with Christ. So anyway, we'll let the leaders of these life groups evaluate the names and decide, if you want to change the name to something that people in today's culture will understand, then you can do that. All name changes must be approved by our Christian Ministry of Education Chair and Pastor Dunstan. Just want to lay that out there. So these are the 13 life groups that we are going to have at Northeast initially. Now, let's talk about characteristics of a life group. As Pastor Johnson described last week, there are different types of small groups. And with our life groups, there are different types. Like one of our life groups could be a study group, like the Adult Bible Study Life Group, the Virtual Sunday School Life Group. They get together to study. That's what they do. They have Bible study, study the word. A life group could also be a service group, or sometimes people call them mission groups. Our Weaver Street Bible Study Life group is actually a service group. That group gets together and provide a service in the Weaver Street community called a Bible study, where they go over and they conduct a Bible study for the children in that community. So that life group is actually a service, or you can call it a mission group. And then life groups can be a prayer group. Our noonday prayer group gets together every Wednesday at noon to pray. A life group can also be a social or fellowship group, like the Refined Seniors group. They get together primarily to fellowship, to go out to pick strawberries, and they go on trips together. So life groups can be just for social getting together. And then a life group could be a combination of these, like Kingdom Builders, for example. Kingdom Builders study. Kingdom Builders also do service, like they have done drive-through prayer, for example. They also do social events, like recently they went bowling together. So a life group can be one of these, or it can be a combination of these. The meeting frequency, the timing of the meetings, the location of the meetings will vary by group. One group may decide, we're going to meet at the church. That's what we want to do. We like that. That's what we'll do. Another group may decide we want to be virtual. We like doing it by Zoom. It's working great. Another group may decide, we're going to be virtual most of the time, but sometimes on certain occasions, we're going to meet at the facilitator's home. Or, it's a nice day. So let's have our study in the park. And so what we want to do is make sure the groups have the flexibility to meet as they choose to meet, as long as they're keeping us up to date on what's going on. In terms of the number of members for a life group, it's unlimited. You can have as many people in a life group as you so choose, such as our adult Bible study life group sometimes can have up to 40 people, or it can be smaller. So there's no limit on how many people can be in a life group. And new people can join at any time. For example, when we have new members joining Northeast, they may immediately, if it's a man, he may immediately want to join the Kingdom Builders group. Or if it's a woman, may want to immediately go to SIS or the virtual Sunday school. So they can join at any time. And we're also stating that you do not have to be a member of Northeast to join a life group. And again, we're seeing that already today. We have people in our adult Bible study that's not members of Northeast. And so we want people who are not members of Northeast to be able to join so they can get to know us. Life groups, the oversight for life groups will continue to occur through the Ministry of Christian Education. So she does that today for all these groups except like the prayer group, and that will continue. So one of the things that we know, and we see it every day, is websites and social media have become very important for churches. And in fact, you'll see them described sometimes as the front door for churches. And so to further open our doors to our community, whether local or distant, what we're going to do is post all Northeast life groups on the Northeast website, where members and non-members who might be looking at our website can see, here's some of the things that Northeast offers. And if somebody wants to join one, or if they have a question about, what is that Refined Seniors, or what is that Kingdom Builders thing, they would be able to click right on the website and request information, or even request to join. We also want to begin to endorse or publicize or make known about our life groups through our Northeast social media. So a policy will be established to keep this information up to date, given that people would be able to see it. I want to show you an example. Now, I made this up. It's a made up example. So the tech team may say, Stella, you go pound sand, we can't do it this way. But I want to give you an image of what we're trying to do in terms of getting our life groups on the Northeast website. So imagine you're looking at the website and you see something, might not look like this, but you see something out there that says, here are the life groups that are available at Northeast: virtual Sunday school, a youth ministry, a refined seniors life group. And imagine that somebody wants to learn something about kingdom builders. And they click on the kingdom builders icon and up pops this screen that gives them information about kingdom builders. And again, I made this up, but it will tell them, you know, it's a study group for men, ages, whatever. The group meets via Zoom or whatever they decide that they want to put here. The person who's interested in kingdom builders would be able to see it. Then they can click, I want to learn more. Or let's say this is a person who's been looking for a men's ministry and they click, I want to join. And then up pops another screen that says, enter some information, whatever information we decide is pertinent for this. They enter it and they press submit, and the information they entered goes to the leader of Kingdom Builders and Pastor Dunstan, who they will follow up with this person to confirm that this is a legitimate person that wants to join Kingdom Builders and not a kid playing around, you know, on the web like we used to play around on the phone. But we want to make sure that this is somebody legitimate, and then they would provide them with the link, and the person now is able to join the Kingdom Builders life group. And we want to do that for all. So in summary, we're going to take select Northeast ministries and rebrand them as life groups. These ministries categorized as life groups will continue to operate just as they do today. Same leaders, same meeting schedule, same reporting structure, same members. The only difference is we're calling them life groups. Some renaming is recommended, as we talked about earlier, and we're planning to publicize these on the Northeast website and to start publicizing them through Northeast media, social media, so that we can help the community to understand what do we have to offer in terms of growth, in terms of fellowship, in terms of establishing relationships. Are there any questions anybody have about life groups before we proceed and talk about branches? Okay. Then let's look at branches, because I mentioned earlier, we're going to have two types of small groups. The life group. Yes.
Mrs. Tonda, I have a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
When is this to begin?
We're going to announce that at a future date. So we'll let you know when we're going to cut over to this.
Okay.
That was a good question. Any other questions? Okay, let's talk about branches. As I mentioned, we got the name branches from John 15:5. These small groups are discipleship study groups. These are the groups, as we talked about last week, Jesus used a 1-on-12 discipleship making method where he was in close relationship with people that he was trying to develop and grow spiritually. And so these branches are small groups that's modeling how Jesus discipled. So we're seeking to grow people through, as we talked about last week, association, getting in close relationship with people, getting to know people, demonstrating what it is that we're trying to teach, not just telling people what to do, but showing them how to do the word, delegation, letting people try things, let them try to lead somebody to Christ under your leadership. And then supervision is, talking with them about what didn't work, what did work. And as they grow, then we send them out to start more branches, to start making disciples. So these are discipleship study groups that have a service and social components. As I mentioned, we're focused on spiritual growth using Jesus's primary discipleship making model. And the end goal of branches is to grow people up so that we can send them out to make disciples who make disciples. Branches will meet weekly, and it should be a safe environment. We talked about that, when we were going through launching Rooted. And the meeting day, time, and location of branches will vary by group. Just like with life groups, they can decide to meet at the church, or the group may say, we want to do it virtually, or we want to do it virtually most of the time and then go to the park or whatever. So we want to give the groups the flexibility to meet whatever works for them as they get together and they gel together as a small group. Some additional characteristics, branch members. We're with the branches, we're setting a maximum of 12 people. And the reason why, people who have done small groups will tell you that small groups are most effective when it's a maximum of 12 to 15. But we're maxing ours at 12, because if Jesus did 12, I don't know that we want to go above 12. So that's the maximum number. A branch could be smaller. It could be 5 people. It could be 3 people. It could be whatever needed for the people that's in the group that you're trying to grow. Same people from study to study. I know that was a question that came up last week when Pastor Johnston was presenting about what is a small group. Here at Northeast, we'd like for the groups to stay together. Same group from study to study. And we'll talk about curriculum and all that stuff in a few minutes. Between studies, new members can join. Now, sometimes, bringing a new person into a group that has already gelled could potentially be problematic, but we want to open it up for new people to join, but they can't join in the middle of a study. So when a group finishes a study and someone wants to join it, and if that group has not hit the max of 12, then another person can join. For branches, again, Northeast membership is not required, because we are trying to use small groups to grow our church. And we can't grow the church if we're going to lock everybody out of our groups. So we want non-members to be able to join the branches. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. Facilitators, 4 branches are approved by Pastor Dunstan. He's currently looking at some qualification for facilitators. And we want the same facilitators from study to study. Again, we want these groups to gel and have good, strong relationships with each other. And so the facilitators, we want them to remain the same with the group. Now, there was some question about, well, what about burnout? Because people do get tired. So what we're doing here at Northeast with our groups, we're planning, our goal is to have 2 facilitators per branch, and put a 2-week break between studies. So that way you got 2 people teaching. So one person can teach a study, and then you have a 2-week break, and then the other person can do the teaching. So that way we're trying to keep ourselves from getting so burnt out that we can't continue. And we want to regularly identify and train new facilitators. So as within a branch, as people are growing, the facilitator should be looking across the group to see who in this group now is at a point where I should start training this person to be a facilitator. And when that person gets to the point where they're prepared, then they should be released or sent, as we talked about, send them out so that they can start making disciples. Other characteristics, if you are interested in being a branch or starting a branch, or being a facilitator of an existing branch, you can submit a request to Pastor Dunstan. And what we hope to be able to do is put those, make it possible for you to make those requests through the Northeast website. Another point that I want to make in terms of branches, group meetings will pause for church programming, just like we do today, just like with our ministries today. When we have revival, if there's a meeting, it gets canceled. Vacation Bible School, things pause for Vacation Bible School, when we have plays, when we do church-wide training for holidays, Thanksgiving and Christmas. And so branches will also pause for events such as that. So that's something we're used to at Northeast, and we're not planning to change that. Certain church programming will take priority over the branch meetings. What about branch oversight? And what about curriculums? We're going to have a Northeast branch leadership team that will be appointed by Pastor Dunstan, and he's already looking at that. We've got some criteria, some draft criteria in place. So he's reviewing that, and we'll update you on that in the future. Some of the things that the branch leadership team will do is listed here on the slide, as you can see. They're the ones that will be preparing curriculums for branches, proving, the curriculums, providing facilitator training, coming up with a model of how we're going to evaluate our small group model, because this is new and we want to be able to determine how effective is it? What tweaks do we need to make? What changes do we need to make to improve it? So that group will be working on that. And then I do want to point out that even though the branch leadership team will come up with curriculums, we want the branch facilitators to have some flexibility in terms of what's being taught in their group. So if you're leading a group and you know that your group needs or have requested some training on prayer, or they want an overview of the Bible, or whatever that topic is, we want the facilitators to be able, to come to the leadership team to state that, my team really needs a training on XYZ. And this leadership team will review that and approve and help find, curriculums, if necessary. So there was a question that was asked of me a while ago when we were first starting to talk about small groups is, what are we going to do about church unity? And how do we prevent, many shepherds? Where you have like someone leading a small group and now they think they're the pastor of the church, or think that they kind of own that little group. So one of the things we will be reiterating to facilitators is Pastor Dunstan is the Northeast leader of all branches, all life groups, and all ministries. We need to make sure everybody understands that just because you are a facilitator of a branch, that doesn't make you the overall leader. Pastor Dunstan is the leader, and he's delegated responsibilities to different people in the church to serve as leaders of ministries, leaders of life groups, facilitators of branches. So our facilitators must meet certain criteria. And as I mentioned earlier, Pastor Dunstan is already looking at what that criteria will be. But to be a facilitator, you're going to have to demonstrate, one, you understand what we just said, that Pastor Dunstan is the pastor, he's the leader, and there's nothing that any of us should be doing to try to circumvent that. And two, that you understand the Northeast vision and our discipleship strategy, and you support that, and that your goal is to help people grow, and that's what you want to do. So facilitators will be asked to encourage people that's in branches to attend church. So the branch is not a replacement for church service. It's just your study group where you're learning to grow. You still need to attend worship services. You still need to be tithing. You still need to be serving in the church according to your spiritual gifting. Everybody has a gift, at least one. And we want everybody to serve God according to their gifting. So there's plenty of ministries at Northeast where we can serve. And so one of the things to facilitate a branch will be looking to make sure everybody in that branch is serving and participating in church-wide events, that they should be at the dinners and they should be at the plays and they should come to the revivals. And, when we're doing outreach, as a church family, participating. So all those kinds of things will help with the unity, that people don't end up in a branch and forget about that we are all part of Northeast Baptist Church. And that will also help to prevent the mini shepherd idea that could happen if we're not careful. So you may say, now, how are we going to get started with these branches? One of the key goals of our Christian discipling training, what we're doing now, is to begin discipling through small groups. And so we've already launched some initial branches through Rooted, where members are experiencing a small group. Some people have never been in a small group, and you may be experiencing it for the first time. And our goal and our hope and our prayer is that you will enjoy it enough that you'll want to continue. And as what we're doing now through Rooted, we're looking to try to identify more group facilitators. So right now we have 4 groups, and these are the names of the groups. They're called, one group is called Chosen, one is called Open Arms, another one is called Overcomers, and we have one group called AIM that's talking about abiding in Christ. That's where they got the name AIM from. So these are the 4 Rooted groups that we have today. And at the end of Rooted is our prayer that these groups will decide to continue to stay together as branches. Now, everybody might not want to stay together, but at least a subset of the people will say, yes, let's stay together. We've gotten to know each other. We've built relationships. We've been studying together, and we want to continue doing that as a group. So at the end of Rooted, we're looking at a 2-week break, and then these groups will be able to take up another study. Now, notice down at the bottom, I have 4 of the groups doing study A. Now, this is just an example. 3 of the groups doing A, but one group decided, we need something different based on who is in our group and what we want to study. Also, I'm showing here that a new branch could start that starts out with Rooted. What we want is that all of our groups start with the Rooted study. So we'll see. Now, what I'm showing here on the screen is a sample of what the curriculum could look like for the branches. It's interesting, I was sharing with Pastor Dunstan and with Kim Moore. I was praying and asking God about how do we do these curriculums? And it was interesting that God reminded me, he said, I've already showed you how to do curriculums. You've been doing it for years. And he kind of revealed more to me about why he sent me to youth Bible study. Because I was like, why am I being appointed to go to youth Bible study? Because I'm not the best person to be working with youth. And God showed me I didn't send you to youth Bible study to work with youth. I sent you to youth Bible study because of your administrative gift. I wanted to get you prepared for what you're doing today. So what I'm showing you on the screen, and again, this is a sample. The leadership team may tweak this or come up with something different, but we'll come up with some studies, and we'll give the branches an estimated duration of how long it could potentially take to finish that particular study. However, branches can be on their own schedule, because what we don't want to do is time box a group and say, you got to finish it in 8 weeks, when a group might finish it in 6 weeks, or a branch may take 10 weeks. And this is something I learned in youth Bible study. Is when I first started doing the curriculums, I tried the time box. Okay, all the classes got to finish this in this amount of time. But I quickly learned that different classes moved at different paces. And so God is saying, let the branches move at the pace that the branch needs to move. Because if we start time boxing everybody, we're going to short circuit the growth that we're trying to promote. So we'll give the branches, studies. But as I mentioned earlier, the facilitators could request a different study depending on what that group needs or what that group has requested. So in summary, at Northeast, we will have ministries, trustee ministry, budget, finance, music, all those that I showed you on that previous slide, where that's no changes. Evangelism, discipleship ministry, pastors aid, short, all those just remain the same, no change. Select ministries are being rebranded as life groups. And we'll let you know, Tonda asked a great question, when are we going to cut over to this? We'll let you know when the cutover date will be. And also in the future, we may add some new groups. There could be another fellowship group added. I'm making this up, a bowling group or a group for single mothers, or, there's all kinds of opportunities we have when we talk about starting life groups that people can benefit from. And then the branches. These are the study groups keenly focused on Jesus's model, where we want to grow people just like Jesus did when he grew the 12. So you may say, now, I already got enough stuff on my plate. How in the world am I supposed to now go and join a branch and a life group and all this stuff? So let me give you some made up examples. I made this up. Let's look at member one. This is a person who serves in Weaver Street today, go to the noonday prayer. So they're going to be in that noonday prayer life group every Wednesday. But then on Wednesday, this person joined a branch. Notice that I highlighted in blue Wednesday at 7. So what this means is branches may meet at the same time as other branches, as life groups or ministries. So this person, instead of going to the Wednesday night adult Bible study life group, they've decided to join a branch. So the branch is not an addition, it's an alternative. It's a different study alternative. Instead of going to the adult Bible study on Wednesday, they're in a branch on Wednesday at 7. And this person's in the discipleship ministry and kingdom builders group on third Saturday. So it wasn't an addition. Like I said, it's an alternative study group. Instead of one, they do the other. Same thing for member 2. This person, instead of going to virtual Sunday school on Mondays at 7, this person's in a branch called Trees. And everything else in their schedule remains the same. They're in the music ministry. They go to SIS on 4th Saturdays. They serve in the youth Bible study on Wednesdays, and they're on the praise team. I don't know what the praise team schedule is, so I made that up. But my point is, branches are not something else you got to do to add to your schedule. It's an alternative study vehicle or mechanism for us. Now, let me show you 2 more. This is member 3. Notice member 3 is not in a branch at all. This person's saying, I like virtual Sunday school. I like that style. I like the adult Bible study. I like the one-on crowd approach that Jesus did it. It worked. And if they want to do that, then that's fine. They can continue to do that. And then member 4, this is clearly a young person because they're in a branch on Friday night at 9. So this means that we're going to have to be more flexible depending on the target group that we're trying to reach. Young people might want to do a Friday night at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock or whatever. And that's what it is. So those are just 4 examples, but my main point is not something else. It's an alternative way of studying and growing in your relationship with Jesus. Now, let's talk about how do members and non-members get into this process? How do we align people with it? Let's start with new members. Today, all of our new members are asked to go through foundations, and praise God, most of them do. We haven't had any problems with this in a long time. So all the members, new members coming in, go into foundations. And one of the things that we do in foundations is talk about discipleship. And so one of the things we will be doing is encouraging new members to join a branch. That's something that we're going to start. So we got to get our training materials up to date. where we want to encourage all new members to get into a branch. And as I mentioned earlier, the branch facilitators will be trained to encourage members to attend worship services, to participate in outreach, to be a part of our fellowship opportunities, to be a part of special programming, to even be in the play, when we have plays and so forth. So that is part of growth, attending these things and growing through our fellowship with others and participating in worship service and worshiping and praising God. That's all part of growing. The branch facilitators will also be encouraging people to serve according to their spiritual gifts. That's how we grow, by serving and using our gifts. And so we'll be encouraging people, join a life group and or ministry according to your gift. What is your gift? And by the way, in foundations, all new members complete the spiritual gift survey. So by the time they leave foundations, they know what their spiritual gift is. And we'll be encouraging them, go ahead, get in a branch and get in a life group or ministry where you can serve God according to your gifting. And also in the branches, we will be encouraging people to attend training, just like this training. Continue to grow through Vacation Bible School, Lead Jesus on Leadership, or whatever church-wide training that we offer. And as I mentioned earlier, when a person gets to the point where they are prepared to be sent, we send them out. Now it's time for you. You're at a point now where you should be leading a group. You should be leading a branch or a life group. It's time for you to move out and start doing what God has created you to do. Now, what about existing members? So we may have some existing members who are not serving in any group or ministry today. They just come to the worship service and so forth. We want to encourage them to get into a branch where you can grow, get rooted and grounded in your relationship with Jesus Christ. And the same thing for people that's in ministries and life groups. We, as you can see, we really want all Northeast members to get into a branch. That's the ultimate goal. And then what about non-members? As I mentioned earlier, you don't have to be a member of Northeast to be a part of a life group, and you don't have to be a member of Northeast to be in a branch. So as people join those, they become, kind of part of our discipleship process. And what we want to do is eventually win them, grow them, and send them. So, and then we have non-members attending our church services and go through outreach and so forth. So this is how we would feed people into our discipleship process. Some examples about church growth, because Pastor Johnston talked about this last week, that small groups can be used to grow a church, and many of the mega churches use them today. That's what they do. They plant these new churches, then they start small groups in the community, and they invite people to the small groups, and then they kind of funnel them into becoming members of the church. Spiritual growth, when we talk about spiritual growth, it will naturally lead to reproduction. So that's the main reason why we want to have small groups, because we want to grow every member. And when we grow up into what God has created us to be, we will automatically start reproducing. We'll start making more disciples. And as I mentioned earlier, we want to open the front door of Northeast wider through our website and through our social media, so non-members can get a better idea of what is it that this Northeast ministry have to offer. They'll be able to see that we have life groups. They'll be able to see that we have these branches that are smaller groups that they can become a part of and build relationships and grow. Then we can personally invite non-members to participate in our life groups or branch events. For example, if a life group is having a cookout, invite the neighbor, and the neighbor comes and gets to know us. And a lot of times, people need to get to know you before they're willing to join your church. So invite your neighbor, invite a coworker to a group mission event. If one of the life groups is doing some outreach event, inviting a coworker to come and be a part of it so they can get to know us and give us opportunity to demonstrate the love of God and to build relationships with people. So as we talked about in our evangelism class, it starts with genuine relationships. You got to demonstrate first, and then you'll be able to share the gospel. We can also personally invite non-members to join, or two Northeast members could start a home-based branch with people in their neighborhood. So the branch could be based in somebody's home where they've got some people in their neighborhood who are now coming. And this is all part of not just growing the universal body of Christ, but also potentially growing Northeast. So what's our next steps? We need to make this training material available, and all this stuff that I just went over. As I mentioned, I'm thinking about how do we package this up and give it out to the congregation in a way that's easier for you to digest. Like this is new. And so I know there's going to be questions, and I'm sure you don't remember everything I said. So we need to look at how to do that. We're going to be asking for your feedback on this training. Taylor has already prepared a draft survey, and when she finished that, we'll send it out, because I'm interested in your feedback. Because what we got to do now is we got to educate the remaining members of Northeast on our discipleship strategy. I mean, everybody at the church hasn't participated in this training. So we got to get everybody trained, and you may have some good suggestions on how we can make this better for people. We need to get the branch leadership team put in place. We got to, as Tanya was saying, we got to come up with the effective date of when we're going to cut over from ministries to life groups. And I've mentioned to Sister Moore about that. We got to get the life groups on the website. I also need to meet with the admin and tech team about ongoing messaging about our discipleship strategy, because we do want people to know we do have a strategy. We do have a strategy to win. We want every member winning souls and growing and sending people out to make more disciples. So we got to get some signage done, get some messaging stuff in place. We got to train some additional branch facilitators. And as we are going forward, we'll be providing ongoing updates for you during executive committee meetings and church conference on, where are we, how are we progressing, and so forth. And we are also, it's not listed on here, we're looking at tools, some tools that we'll use to help us track our small groups. I met with the pastor of small groups at New Hope Church over on Fayetteville Street. And he shared with me a tool that they use, but he doesn't recommend it because he said we use it, but it's not all that great. So we need to look at what tools are available that we can use to help us as we manage the small groups, because I'm anticipating we're going to have a lot. So I'm going to pause to see, does anybody have any questions